Imagine being trapped alone on a rainy night, every shadow whispering secrets you're not meant to hear. The kind of night where the walls breathe, the floor creaks beneath your feet, and something unseen watches with cold, hungry eyes. Emily thought it was just another storm, until a chilling discovery shattered her reality forever. What crawled out from beneath the floorboards isn't human, and it knows her name. Before we dive into this terrifying true story, don't forget to follow and support this channel for more spine-tingling tales you won't find anywhere else. Are you ready to face the darkness? You never really notice how loud rain can be until you're sitting alone in a strange house, with no TV on, no music, no one speaking, just you and the storm. Emily Carter stared out the rain-soaked window of her new rental. A single street lamp flickered out front, casting broken shadows across the driveway. The moving truck had just left. Boxes were stacked in awkward piles all over the living room, the air still smelling like wet cardboard and lemon cleaner. The place was quiet. Too quiet. She hadn't expected to feel this unsettled. After all, this was her fresh start. A one-bedroom house just outside town. Affordable. Private. And importantly, far from the past she was trying to leave behind. Her landlord, Tom, had been nice enough. Maybe a little off. He handed over the keys quickly and made a strange comment before leaving. Just try not to overthink things out here. It's a peaceful place. Unless you go looking for noise. At the time, she thought he meant neighbors. But there weren't any. Now, as the storm began to really pour, Emily realized she hadn't heard a single car pass by in over an hour. She busied herself unpacking the essentials: phone charger, laptop, kettle. The electricity flickered once, but held. Still, she noticed the back porch light kept blinking randomly, even though she hadn't turned it on. Every time it went dark, she found herself staring into the blackness beyond the glass door, waiting. For what, she didn't know. By midnight, the storm was in full force. Thunder rolled through the hills like the crack of splitting wood. Emily curled up on the old couch, blanket pulled to her chin, the soft glow of her laptop screen the only light. That's when she heard it. A single, deliberate creak. From the hallway. She froze. Listened. Another creak. Then silence. It could be the old floorboards, she reasoned. This house was probably from the 60s. Wood settles. But the sound had weight to it. It wasn't a random shift. It sounded like a step. Emily stood slowly, her heart thudding now in sync with the thunder outside. She peeked down the hallway, nothing but shadows. Still, she walked toward it, phone in hand, flashlight on. The hallway was narrow and dim. The walls had an old, yellowing wallpaper that curled at the corners. She passed the bathroom, the bedroom, and finally reached the kitchen at the far end. Nothing. Then she noticed it. In the corner, behind the pantry door, a thin line across the floor. Like someone had tried to paint over a seam in the wood. She knelt down. Touched it. It was a panel. Just big enough for someone to squeeze through. She didn't open it. Not tonight. She told herself it was probably access to pipes or old wiring. Every house had weird features. That didn't mean anything. But still, as she walked back to the couch, she couldn't help but glance over her shoulder. The rain beat harder against the windows. The wind howled like a distant scream. And from the hallway behind her, the floor creaked once more. The storm hadn't let up. If anything, the rain was coming down harder now, drumming relentlessly on the roof like a warning that wouldn't stop. Emily lay awake on the couch, eyes half open, the TV playing some muted cooking show she wasn't even watching. She just needed noise, something to fill the heavy silence pressing in from every side of the house. She couldn't stop thinking about that wooden panel in the pantry floor. It was just a storage hatch, she kept telling herself. Old houses have weird quirks. But why would someone paint over it? At exactly 11:41 p.m., her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Emily blinked at the screen. Unknown caller. No name. No number. Just the two words floating there, backlit against the darkness of the room. She hesitated, thumb hovering. Maybe it was Tom, The landlord, calling from a different phone. Maybe something had come up with the lease, or the power. She answered. At first, all she heard was static. A low, broken hiss. Then came the clicking, like someone was dialing another number over the line. Then, through the noise, a voice. A male voice. Low. Muffled. Don't go in the basement. Emily sat straight up. Hello? Who is this? The line cut off. She stared at the screen. Call ended. Her heart was hammering. She immediately opened her messages and texted Tom. Hey, just got a weird call. Someone said something about a basement? I thought the house didn't have one. The message sent. No reply. She tried calling him. Straight to voicemail. Her fingers trembled slightly as she set the phone down. She didn't want to go near that pantry, not now. But something inside her, something stubborn, forced her to her feet. She walked through the kitchen slowly, every step creaking just a little louder than she liked. The pantry door was closed now. Had she shut it earlier? She turned the knob, opened it. The hatch was still there. That faint seam, still visible in the floorboards. But now, it looked different. Like the paint had been scratched away at the edges. As if someone had tried to open it from underneath. Emily stepped back. Closed the pantry door. Nope. Not tonight. She walked straight to the bedroom, locked the door, and climbed under the covers fully clothed, phone gripped tightly in her hand. The rain continued. The storm raged on. And as she finally began drifting off to sleep, the phone buzzed again. One new message. Unknown number. You heard me. The next morning brought no peace. The rain had slowed, but the sky was still an overcast gray, thick and low like it was pressing down on the entire town. Emily hadn't slept more than an hour. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard the voice again. Don't go in the basement. But there was no basement. Right. She made coffee and stood by the back door, watching the wet yard glisten under the dreary light. Beyond the short wooden steps, just grass and mud, and trees. A thin line of woods just beyond the fence. As she reached for the creamer, she stopped. There. On the porch. Footprints. Muddy. Bare. She froze. Opened the door slowly and leaned out, her skin prickling with cold. The prints led from the grass to the back door. Human. No shoes. Just long, narrow feet pressed into the thin layer of wet dirt. She hadn't been outside. And no one else lived here. Emily grabbed her phone and took a photo. Then texted Tom again. Someone was on the porch last night. These are fresh. You need to come by. No response. She spent the day trying to work, but her focus was shredded. Every small sound pulled her attention. The tick of the clock. The hum of the fridge. The soft tap of tree branches against the window. At dusk, she double-checked every door and window. She locked them all. Even wedged a chair under the doorknob in the bedroom, just in case. By 10 o'clock, the wind picked up again. Rain started tapping the windows once more, soft at first, then steady. Thunder grumbled in the distance. Emily curled back up on the couch. TV on. Blanket over her lap. That's when she heard it. A light scratch. She muted the TV. Another scratch. Not from inside. From the back door. She stood slowly. Walked to the kitchen. Scratch. Scratch, scratch. Not a knock. Not an animal. It was methodical. Human. She flipped on the porch light. It flickered once, then stayed on. No one was there. She stood frozen for a long time, staring at the empty porch. Then her phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. I know you're awake. Her blood ran cold. She looked at the porch again. Then down at the floor. More footprints. They were newer. Clearer. A little wetter than before. They weren't there an hour ago. Emily backed away, her breath coming short and fast. She locked the back door again. Then another buzz. Unknown number. Don't bother. Locks won't help. Emily didn't sleep at all that night. She sat on the floor with her back against the bedroom wall, staring at the locked door, phone clutched in her hand like a weapon. Every time a branch tapped against the window or the wind shifted, she flinched. By morning, the rain had stopped. But the air still felt heavy, damp with tension. She didn't bother with coffee. Instead, she walked the house slowly, checking every door, every window, every corner. No sign of forced entry. No more footprints. Nothing. But she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't alone. Midway through the day, she decided to leave a voicemail for Tom. She kept it short. "Hey, it's Emily. I don't know what's going on here, but something's not right. Please call me back." No reply. By late afternoon, a headache had settled behind her eyes. She laid on the couch and tried to rest. And then, in the quiet, she heard a sound that didn't make sense. A breath. Not hers. She opened her eyes. The hallway was dark. And in the mirror across from the couch, the hallway was just barely visible, warped slightly by the old glass. But in the reflection, she saw something. A shape. A figure. Just for a second. It stood just behind her. She turned around sharply. No one was there. The hallway was empty. She stood, heart thudding, and walked slowly toward the mirror. Stared into it. Nothing but her own pale face and the shadows behind her. She looked down the hallway. And realized the pantry door was open again. She hadn't touched it all day. Her stomach tightened. She stepped into the kitchen, the floor creaking under her bare feet. The pantry door hung open, swinging slightly from the draft. She looked down. The wooden floor panel had shifted. No longer flush with the rest of the floor. Just enough to slip a fingernail underneath. She stared at it. No. Not yet. She closed the pantry door again. Locked it with a small hook latch she found in one of the drawers. Then pushed a chair in front of it. That night, she didn't go near the bedroom. She curled up on the couch with the lights on and the TV playing static just for the noise. Around midnight, the electricity cut out. Just like that. And somewhere in the dark behind her, the pantry door creaked open. Emily didn't scream. She couldn't. Her voice caught in her throat the moment the pantry door creaked. She sat frozen in place, the hum of silence pressing down on her like a weight. Then came the soft sound. A shift. Wood brushing against wood. Something was moving underneath the floorboards. Slow. Deliberate. She grabbed her phone, flashlight on, and stood barefoot, every nerve in her body screaming. The beam of light cut across the room, trembling in her grip as she moved toward the kitchen. The pantry door was wide open now. The chair she had wedged in front of it was on its side. The hook latch was snapped clean off the frame. She stood just outside the doorway, her flashlight trained on the floor. The panel was completely open. Darkness yawned below, revealing a narrow wooden shaft and an old ladder descending into pitch black. It didn't make sense. Tom had never mentioned a basement. The listing had said no basement. And yet here it was. And the air that rose from it was cold. Stale. Damp. She should have run. Instead, she did something she didn't understand, not even as she was doing it. She crouched. She peered inside. And she whispered, without meaning to, "Hello?" From the bottom of the shaft came a sound. A shuffle. Something soft. Then, clear as day, a whisper in return. "Emily." She staggered back, her flashlight swinging wildly. She turned and sprinted down the hallway to the front door, yanking it open. Wind hit her hard. The rain had started again. She ran onto the porch, but froze. In the yard stood a man. He was barefoot. Soaked. His face pale. His head tilted slightly to one side. And he was smiling. She slammed the door shut and locked it. Heart racing. Chest heaving. Her phone buzzed in her hand. Another message. Unknown number. "That's not me." Her hands went cold. She backed away from the door, staring at it like it might dissolve at any moment. And then, From behind her, beneath the floor, something began to climb the ladder. Emily didn't wait. She grabbed the small lamp off the side table, ripped the cord from the wall, and crept back toward the kitchen. Her flashlight barely cut through the thick shadows bleeding from the pantry. She could hear it now. Each creak of the old wooden ladder echoed up through the open hatch. Closer. Slower. Like whatever was climbing wanted her to hear it. Wanted her to wait. She inched forward until the opening came into view again. Still nothing. Just the hole in the floor and the sound of something approaching. Then a hand emerged. Pale. Damp. Fingers long and thin, nails cracked and blackened. It gripped the edge of the floor like it belonged there. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Another hand followed. Then nothing. Silence. Her phone buzzed in her other hand. She looked down. Unknown number. It looks like you. She didn't understand. Her pulse roared in her ears as she aimed the flashlight again. That's when the head rose slowly into view. It was her. Same face. Same hair. Same hollow eyes. But wrong. Its skin was too tight. Like a mask stretched over something that wasn't quite human. Its eyes didn't blink. And its mouth didn't move. It only smiled. Emily stepped back, heart thudding. The thing climbed higher, fully emerging from the hole in the floor, barefoot and silent. It was wearing her sweatshirt. The one she had thrown into the laundry basket yesterday. She whispered, "What are you?" The smile didn't falter. Then it spoke, and the voice was hers. Exactly hers. "Why did you let me out?" Emily turned and ran. Down the hallway. Past the bathroom. Toward the bedroom at the end of the hall. She slammed the door shut, locked it, shoved the dresser in front. Her chest ached from panic. From outside the door came the soft knock. Not pounding. Just 3 careful taps. Then her voice again. "I'm cold, Emily. Let me in." She backed into the corner, and held the lamp tight in her hand like a weapon. And for the first time since she arrived at the house, she cried. But she didn't scream. She couldn't. Because outside the room, her own voice was still calling her name. Over and over and over again. The knocking stopped around 3 a.m. But the silence that followed was worse. Emily sat huddled in the corner of the bedroom, the broken lamp clutched tight in her lap. Her eyes were locked on the door, watching the handle twitch every so often. Not turning. Just a soft, teasing tremble. She hadn't heard footsteps. Whatever it was, it didn't walk like a person. Her phone had no signal. The battery had dipped below 10%. No messages. No calls. Just that last one. "It looks like you." As the night dragged into morning, Emily dared to inch closer to the window. She peeked out through the blinds. The man was gone. The yard was empty. She moved slowly to the door. Placed her ear against it. Silence. Her hand hovered over the knob, every instinct screaming not to open it. But she had to know. She slid the dresser aside inch by inch. Unlatched the lock. Opened the door just a crack. The hallway was empty. Light bled in from the living room window, dull and gray. The house smelled damp. She took a breath, stepped out slowly. Every shadow felt alive. The pantry door was shut again. As if nothing had happened. But she knew better. She crept toward the front door. Reached for the knob. It turned easily. But as she opened it, she froze. Outside was the same porch. The same yard. The same thin line of trees. But something was different. No wind. No rain. No sound. The world outside the door felt wrong. Like a photograph. Still. Flat. Too quiet. She shut the door quickly and locked it. The clock on the wall ticked once. Then stopped. She turned slowly to look down the hallway. And froze. The walls were bleeding. Thin streaks of dark liquid ran in lines down the wallpaper, as if the house itself was weeping. She stepped backward, chest tight. And from inside the walls, she heard movement. A faint scuttling sound. Like hands. Crawling. Scraping. Following her. She turned and ran to the bathroom, slammed the door, locked it. Stared at her reflection in the mirror above the sink. She looked exhausted. Pale. Then the lights flickered, and her reflection smiled. But she hadn't. And behind her in the mirror, a second face began to form in the shadows of the shower curtain. Emily spun around, yanking the shower curtain open in one frantic motion. Nothing. Just the old tub. Cracked tiles. A cold draft seeping up from the drain. She turned back to the mirror. Her reflection looked normal again, just her. Shaking. Wide-eyed. Silent. But she didn't trust it. Something in the glass seemed too still. Like it was waiting. She left the bathroom, creeping down the hallway, glancing back every few seconds like something was following her. The house was quiet now. Too quiet. The pantry door was still closed. But as she passed it, she felt a sudden gust of cold air brush past her ankle. She froze. Then heard it. Her own voice. Soft. From somewhere inside the walls. "I'm still here." Emily ran to the living room. The fireplace sat cold and unused beneath the mantel. But now, something about it caught her attention. The edges of the bricks were stained. Not soot. Not dirt. Dark. Wet. Red. She crouched and ran her fingers along the edge of the hearth. The brick shifted. A panel popped open. Behind it was a narrow passage, dark and narrow, carved into the wall itself. She held her breath. Listened. Nothing. But she had to know. She had to see. She grabbed the closest thing she could, a candle and a match from the drawer, and stepped inside. The walls of the passage were lined with old wood and insulation. She moved slowly, brushing spiderwebs away as she crawled. The air smelled wrong. Damp, but also sweet. Like rotting flowers. Then the tunnel opened into a small crawlspace. And she saw it. Another version of her. Sitting in the corner. Curled up like a doll. Eyes closed. Barefoot. Wearing the same clothes she had packed her first night in the house. Her throat closed up. This wasn't possible. She took one slow step closer. The thing in the corner opened its eyes. They were entirely black. Then it spoke, and it sounded like her. "You're the shadow. Not me." Emily backed up fast, knocking over the candle. Darkness swallowed the crawlspace. She turned and scrambled out, clawing her way through the narrow tunnel. Behind her, the voice followed. "You don't belong here. You let me out. I told you not to open it." She burst back into the living room, covered in dust and cobwebs, breathing hard. And standing in the middle of the room was Tom. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. He opened his mouth. But the thing behind Emily got there first. Emily's breath caught. Tom stood in the middle of the living room, wide-eyed, lips parted, but completely still. Not moving toward her. Not saying a word. Behind her, from the passageway, the second Emily crept out on all fours. Silent. Smiling. Tom looked at it, then at her, and backed away. That's when she realized. He wasn't here to help her. He was afraid of both of them. "No," she whispered. "Tom, it's me." His eyes were filled with something she couldn't read, guilt, maybe. Or recognition. Then he finally spoke. "You opened the floor?" Emily didn't answer. Because the thing that looked like her was now standing. Shoulders stiff. Skin too pale. A glint of something sharp just under the flesh, like its bones were made of glass. Tom swallowed hard and stepped back toward the door. "She was supposed to stay down there," he whispered. "That's why I didn't tell you. I never thought you'd actually go in." Emily stared at him. "You knew?" He didn't meet her eyes. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I was just supposed to look after the place. Keep the door shut. That's it." Behind her, the second Emily tilted her head. "She let me out," it said softly. Then it lunged. Emily barely ducked as the creature dove past her. Tom shouted, stumbling backward. The two of them crashed into the front door, the impact shaking the whole house. Emily screamed. The lights above flickered violently. The walls groaned. Then she heard it again. Inside the walls? More voices. More crawling. Scratching. As if that thing wasn't the only one that had gotten out. Tom managed to push the creature off, and it collapsed onto the rug, twitching unnaturally. He grabbed Emily's arm. "We have to put it back." His voice was panicked now. "Help me. Please." Emily looked at the thing on the floor. It was already standing again. But this time, it wasn't looking at them. It was staring at the pantry. As if something worse was still down there. Tom grabbed Emily's hand tightly, pulling her toward the kitchen. "We don't have much time," he said, voice low but urgent. The pantry door was wide open again, darkness spilling out like a void. Emily's heart hammered as she approached it, the air around her growing colder with every step. From the depths below, she heard faint whispers, countless voices calling out in voices both familiar and twisted. "We have to close the door," Tom said, fumbling with something in his pocket. He pulled out a rusty old key, ancient and heavy, covered in grime. "This locks the hatch from below. If we don't seal it, whatever's down there will never stop." Emily nodded, swallowing the fear. Together, they descended the ladder into the blackness. The walls were slick with moisture and something darker, sticky and cold. Tom's flashlight revealed old markings scratched into the wood, symbols Emily didn't understand. At the bottom, a heavy trapdoor stood ajar, revealing a black void beyond. Tom worked quickly, inserting the key and turning it with a loud click. The trapdoor slammed shut. For a moment, silence. Then, a low groan like the house itself was exhaling. Emily looked at Tom. "We can't leave," she said softly. "No," he agreed. "Not yet." The two climbed back up, locking the floor panel tight. They didn't speak as they pushed the chair back in front of the pantry door and hooked the latch. Outside, the rain finally stopped. But inside the house, the air remained thick and cold. Emily knew one thing for sure. The door must stay closed. Because whatever was waiting below didn't want to be found again. And if it ever escaped, no one would be safe.